Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, based on the time you're watching. This video belongs to a series with an aim to educate the masses on the very basics of sustainability and its related topics, including their actions and impacts. No prior knowledge of any subject is required. Let us explore today's topic. Just like the global average temperature, the carbon related terminologies, or jargons as I call them, are increasing day by day. They are being used in reports, surveys, seminars, sessions, articles, etc. The summary from an ESG report of a company may look something like this. Company ABC has set its short-term, mid-term, and long-term climate targets. For short-term targets, ABC has calculated its carbon footprint to identify risk and opportunities for emissions reduction. It will apply energy efficiency solutions to reduce its operational emissions and will offset the remaining to become carbon neutral. For midterm targets, ABC is looking to become carbon negative while transitioning to net zero emissions, including the embodied carbon of its products. In the long term, that is by 2050, ABC will be an absolute zero company. It is very confusing for someone new to the field like me to understand all these jargons, and that is why I will try to briefly define these interconnected terminologies that we regularly hear. To start with, it's embodied carbon, which is about all the carbon emissions released as a part of producing the product ready for use, like extraction of minerals, refining, transportation, and retail. Once the product is sold, the emissions it releases during its operation are called operation carbon or operational emissions. For example, the production of a car, which includes metal mining, plastic production from oil, manufacturing, assembly, and transportation, all of which is considered as embodied carbon. Once the car is in use, the emissions released by burning fuel is considered as operational emissions. Same concept can be applied to other products and even buildings. Carbon footprint is a famous buzzword. It is about the total carbon emitted in the atmosphere by different activities in a certain period. It can be calculated for individuals or entities. For an individual, emissions can be calculated approximately based on how much a person travels, where does he or she lives, what does he or she eats, monthly income, members of the household, shopping, etc. The average global carbon footprint for an individual is 4 tons yearly, whereas for an individual in US it is 16 tons. There are some websites that can calculate your footprint for free. Try this one out. Link is given in the description as well. For the entities, it is the sum of all emissions that are relevant to an organization, as we learned in the GHG accounting video. I'll put the link again in the description. Entire carbon emissions in scope 1, 2, and 3, including upstream and downstream activities combined, will give us the carbon footprint of an entity. The purpose of calculating this footprint is to identify the opportunities to set reduction targets. These targets can be achieved by purchasing the carbon offsets. So what are the carbon offsets? As the name suggests, these are the projects and programs to reduce greenhouse gas emissions from the atmosphere to compensate or offset the emissions that are occurred elsewhere by other entities. Carbon offset credit is certified by governments or independent bodies and typically represents a reduction in tons of carbon dioxide, which can be purchased by an organization to compensate for its emissions. Carbon offsets are undertaken as different projects, which may include renewable energy development as it avoids CO2 emissions which otherwise would release in the atmosphere by burning fossil fuel. Capture of other GHGs like methane, nitrous oxide, or HFCs to avoid releasing into the atmosphere in the very first place. Increasing forestation or avoiding deforestation. Since trees capture and store carbon, these projects will provide carbon storage and its capacity will increase as the trees grow. These projects can range from small, like few hundred tons of CO2 per year, to very large, like millions of tons per year. Currently, carbon offsets are the only way an organization can claim to be carbon neutral. Oh, that's another carbon jargon. Carbon neutrality is achieved when all CO2 emissions are balanced by a carbon dioxide removal typically over 1 year period. It means that an entity can claim to be carbon neutral if its carbon footprint calculated for 1 year period can be neutralized by a purchase of equivalent carbon offsets. Carbon neutrality is a path to become carbon negative. Now, what is carbon negative? This means removing more carbon from the atmosphere than you are producing, leading to ultimate path towards net zero emissions. Okay, so net zero emissions is achieved when all CO2 and CO2 equivalent emissions, including the other greenhouse gases, are being balanced by removals or offsets in 1 year period, which can lead to become absolute zero. So absolute zero emissions refer to no greenhouse gases released from the activities in the first place. Since there is no release of GHGs, no offsets are required. This kind of gives the ideal world scenario. Now, if you read that passage again that we saw in the beginning of the video, it is not going to haunt you as much as it did the first time. Thank you for watching up to this point. If you want me to discuss any other topic related to this subject, please mention it in the comment and I will try my best to come up with a short video covering the basics. Have a good day.